Welcome to today's deep dive. We're incredibly thrilled to have you with us because today we are embarking on a very specific, highly focused mission.
Yeah, we're doing something a little bit different this time.
We really are. I mean, sometimes we take this massive stack of articles and data sets and we try to synthesize an entire field of study for you. But today we're going to unpack a single remarkably powerful piece of source material.
This one concept.
Right, from a text called The Bucket and the Well, Moroccan Wisdom Unveiled. And to kick things off, I want to ask you a direct question. Think about your own life for a second. How far are you willing to go to satisfy your own intense curiosity?
It's a great question.
Right, like when you encounter a mystery or maybe a complex problem at work or a situation where you just know there's more going on beneath the surface, what is your default move? Do you just walk up to the edge, peer over, shrug when it's too dark to see, and walk away?
Most people do.
Or are you willing to actually plunge into the dark to find out what is really down there?
And that question, it really challenges the very nature of how we interact with the unknown. And to set the scene for this exploration today, I want you to just imagine the backdrop behind me right now. Picture a dimly lit, ancient stone well.
Oh, I love that imagery.
The stones are weathered by centuries of time, they're cool to the touch, and the opening drops down into this profound, echoing darkness. You cannot see the water at the bottom.
You just have to trust it's there.
Exactly. You can only sense that it is there, deep in the earth. The well perfectly reflects the deep, historically layered wisdom we are about to explore today. We are looking at a singular, incredibly profound proverb.
Rooted deeply in Moroccan culture.
Yes, which is an oral tradition known for its rich, layered philosophical insights that were often traded in, the bustling medinas and souks.
The imagery is just, it's perfect. It's exactly what we need to hold in our minds for this. Now, the original text provides the singular Arabic proverb, and the exact English translation provided is just brilliantly concise. It says, if you want to know what's at the bottom of the well, make yourself a bucket.
If you want to know what's at the bottom of the well, make yourself a bucket. It is such a sparse, efficient sentence, yet it carries this incredible amount of psychological and strategic weight.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because right away, we have our first layer of meaning, which is a really practical life lesson about the price of curiosity.
The core idea here.
Yeah, the core idea is that if you are intensely curious about something, you must be willing to take the necessary steps and put in the actual effort to find out.
Right.
It's about moving from a state of passive wondering to a state of active pursuit. You cannot just stand at the top of the well and wish the water would defy gravity and come up to you. You have to literally turn yourself into the vehicle of discovery.
What's fascinating here is the mechanics of the metaphor and what it demands of you cognitively. Let's look beyond the basic idea of a bucket holding water.
Okay.
The bottom of the well represents hidden truths, deep knowledge, or the core reality of a complex situation.
Yeah.
It's inherently inaccessible to the casual observer.
The well does not give up its secrets easily to people who just stroll by.
Precisely. And then you have the instruction, make yourself a bucket. You cannot passively acquire this deep knowledge. You must actively transform yourself into the tool that descends into the unknown. A bucket is designed to plunge, to endure the cold and the dark, to gather up what is hidden and then
be hauled all the way back up to the light.
Yes. It implies a journey of descent and ascent, and most importantly, it implies serious, heavy work.
Yes, the heavy lifting. It makes me think of, falling down a research rabbit hole or trying to master a totally new professional skill. We've all been there.
Oh, absolutely.
If you just skim the Wikipedia page or read a few summarized headlines on your phone, you are just looking over the edge of the well. You aren't really learning. You're just observing the darkness from a safe distance.
You're staying comfortable.
Right. If you want the real answers, the nuanced understanding that actually gives you an edge, you have to do the heavy lifting. You have to go down into the primary sources, the dense books, the complicated, frustrating tutorials. You have to immerse yourself in the confusing parts of the learning process and then pull that information back up to the surface where you can actually synthesize it and use it.
And that commitment requires a certain surrender of comfort. The space at the top of the well is safe. It's sunlit. It's where the crowd is standing.
But the bucket has to leave that.
The bucket has to leave that comfortable environment. When you decide to truly understand a complex issue, maybe it's a new market trend in your industry, or the underlying mechanics of artificial intelligence, you have to leave your intellectual comfort zone.
You have to plunge into the depths where things are murky.
Where they're murky and unclear. You have to let go of your preconceived notions and allow yourself to be filled with new, often contradictory information. And hauling that bucket back up, that is the cognitive labor of synthesis.
That's the real work.
Synthesizing new knowledge, understanding opposing viewpoints, grasping complex data sets that is the actual friction of learning. Modern information consumption is built to keep us at the top of the well, endlessly scrolling through easy, bite-sized summaries.
Yeah, just skimming the surface.
This Moroccan proverb is a stark reminder that mastery requires the descent.
You know, pulling up that heavy bucket of knowledge makes total sense for studying and skill building. But reading through the text of the bucket and well, I was struck by how this applies to human interaction, too.
It's a highly sophisticated social strategy.
It is, and here's where it gets really interesting. The text reveals that in Moroccan culture, making yourself a bucket also translates to a tactic of pretending to be empty or acting a bit naive in order to quickly discover the true intentions of the people around you.
You intentionally present yourself as a simple vessel.
Yeah, an unassuming vessel.
Yes, the dual nature of this wisdom is what makes it so compelling. If we connect this to the bigger picture of human psychology, what we're talking about here is essentially strategic incompetence.
Or the deliberate use of information asymmetry.
Exactly. Think about the nature of an empty bucket. It is hollow. It is unassuming. It poses absolutely no threat to anything around it.
None at all.
When you embody the empty bucket in a high-stakes social dynamic, you are intentionally lowering the defenses of everyone in the room. Human beings are incredibly reactive to perceived threats, particularly threats to their intellect or their status.
Oh, for sure.
When someone walks into a room and projects absolute competence, dominance, or that know-it-all energy, the people around them immediately put up their masks. They become guarded. They calculate their words. They hide their true motives because they feel they have entered a competitive arena.
They immediately start playing defense. But wait, if I act like an empty bucket at work or during a big negotiation, won't the people across the table just think I'm actually incompetent?
That's the risk, yes.
How do we balance gathering intelligence with protecting our professional reputation? I mean, nobody wants to be the person in the boardroom who looks like they don't understand the quarterly report.
That is the crucial nuance here. Playing the empty bucket doesn't mean acting foolish or vegetative. It means suppressing your own ego enough to let the other person feel superior.
Okay.
It is about asking broad, open-ended questions that might sound slightly basic, but are actually designed to get the other person talking. It's the psychological concept of the vacuum effect. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does an inflated human ego.
That is so true.
When you create a space of silence or project a slight lack of understanding, the other person's ego inevitably rushes in to fill that space. And in their rush to educate you, to talk down to you, or to show off their own brilliance, they drop their guard.
They leak their true intentions.
Their hidden agendas, their biases, and their underlying character. By holding back your own intelligence, you hand them the shovel, and they enthusiastically dig up all the data you need.
I am so glad you brought up the idea of handing them the shovel because it perfectly illustrates the sheer street-smart nature of this wisdom. It completely flips conventional corporate and social advice on its head. Usually we're taught to always put our best foot forward, to demonstrate our intelligence immediately, to prove that we belong in the room, to make sure everyone knows exactly how smart and capable we are.
Right, establish dominance.
But this Moroccan proverb is saying, hold on a second. Sometimes the absolute smartest thing you can do in a room is to let everyone else think they are the smartest person in the room. You just sit back, act a little unassuming, ask seemingly simple questions, and watch as they completely expose their hand.
Precisely. It's a masterclass in reading the room. Let's think about a real-world business application. Imagine you are entering a negotiation with a vendor or a potential partner.
Okay, picturing it.
If you come in aggressively stating everything you know about their supply chain weaknesses and market position, they will immediately become defensive. They will give you nothing but rehearsed, guarded answers.
Yeah, they're not going to give an inch.
But if you take the empty bucket approach, you might say something like, I was looking over these logistics and I'm just having a hard time wrapping my head around how you manage the overseas shipping times. Could you walk me through that?
Oh, that is so good. Because what happens next is so predictable.
Exactly. They assume you are slightly out of your depth. Their ego takes the wheel, they relax, they lean back, and they start explaining their process. And because they don't respect your intellect as a threat, they become sloppy.
They might accidentally reveal a critical vulnerability.
Yes, a vulnerability in their shipping process or a friction point with their suppliers, simply because they were enjoying the feeling of being the expert in the room. They hand you the exact leverage you need, completely unprompted.
It reminds me so much of the classic detective character Columbo. If you look at how Peter Falk played that character, it is the ultimate embodiment of the empty bucket strategy.
The raincoat and everything.
Yes. He walks into the room in that rumpled raincoat, bumbling around, acting slightly confused, asking for things to be explained to him like he's a child. And the suspects, who are almost always these arrogant, highly successful elites, take one look at him and completely dismiss him.
The Columbo analogy is spot on. The suspect assumes the detective is incompetent, so they don't bother to construct a flawless lie. They do not view him as a cognitive equal.
No, they don't.
Columbo uses their arrogance as a weapon against them. He asks that famous question, just one more thing, and because the suspect's defenses are completely down, they stumble. They reveal the missing clue. The brilliance of the character and the brilliance of this Moroccan proverb is the recognition that people are far more dangerous when you let them think they are outsmarting you.
But doing that requires such an incredible amount of self-control. I'll be honest, I think about times in my own life where I've totally failed at this. I remember a time I was in a strategy meeting with a new client.
We've all been there.
They were explaining their industry, and I was so desperate to prove that I had done my research and that I belonged in that meeting that I kept interrupting to finish their sentences. I was throwing out industry jargon, constantly demonstrating my competence, and the result, the client completely clammed up.
Because they felt threatened.
Right. They gave me short, clipped answers for the rest of the meeting. If I had just taken a breath and been the empty bucket, if I had just let them talk and pour their knowledge out, I would have learned what they actually cared about. Instead, my ego got in the way.
And that is the hardest part of this strategy. To successfully execute the empty bucket, you must have an incredibly secure ego. You have to be entirely comfortable with other people underestimating you.
Which is agonizing.
For most high achievers, that is absolutely agonizing. The visceral, physical urge to correct someone when they're wrong, to show off our own knowledge, to win the immediate intellectual skirmish is incredibly strong. We are conditioned to seek immediate validation.
But this proverb advises us to sacrifice that short-term gratification.
Exactly. Sacrifice looking smart for the long-term strategic advantage of gathering authentic intelligence. It is the power of strategic humility. You are prioritizing ultimate understanding over immediate validation.
It is like having a superpower that no one knows you have, precisely because the superpower involves looking like you don't have one. You just absorb, analyze, and understand the room on a completely different level than everyone else.
While everyone else is playing status games.
Yeah, while they're guarding their territory, you are just quietly collecting data.
It's an information gathering mechanism that operates entirely under the radar. And it's fascinating to see how this oral tradition from Morocco encapsulates such advanced psychological warfare, though warfare might be too aggressive a term.
Advanced social navigation.
Yes, in the historical context of a bustling Moroccan marketplace, knowing who you were dealing with was paramount. You couldn't rely on contracts or digital footprints. You had to rely on your ability to read human nature. The empty bucket was a survival tool in complex negotiations.
So what does this all mean for you? We have these two incredibly potent, highly practical layers of meaning derived from one simple translated sentence. If you want to know what's at the bottom of the well, make yourself a bucket. How do you actually use this in your day-to-day life, starting right now?
I think we can break down the application of both lessons quite clearly for the listener. Let's start with the first layer, the interpretation regarding the price of curiosity and the effort of learning.
The descent.
Right. For you, the listener, this means taking a hard look at your current goals and recognizing when you are merely hovering at the edge of the well. Are you facing a complex bottleneck at work? Are you trying to master a complicated piece of software?
And getting frustrated by the lack of progress.
Exactly. If you feel frustrated, you have to ask yourself, have I truly committed to the descent? You must commit to being the bucket. That means dedicating the time, sitting with the uncomfortable friction of not knowing, and doing the rigorous, unglamorous work of focused studying.
It's not a quick summary.
It means accepting that deep, competitive advantage-level knowledge is not handed to you in a summary. It is retrieved through your own deliberate, often exhausting effort. You have to plunge deep and do the heavy lifting.
And what about the second layer? How do we put the social strategy of the empty bucket into practice without overdoing it?
This is where you can fundamentally alter your social dynamics and your professional negotiations. The next time you are in a new social situation or entering a high-stakes meeting, run an experiment. Try the empty bucket approach.
Actively suppress the urge to demonstrate your competence right out of the gate.
Yes. Listen significantly more than you talk. Ask those broad, open-ended questions that gently prompt the other person to explain themselves. Allow a feigned innocence to create a vacuum in the conversation. And then just observe. Watch how people rush to fill that silence.
See who becomes condescending.
Notice who becomes condescending, who becomes genuinely helpful, who tries to establish dominance, and who inadvertently reveals their ultimate goals because they think you aren't savvy enough to catch on. By being the empty bucket, you are gathering the most valuable currency in any human interaction, the unfiltered truth about the other person's intentions and character.
You are letting them hand you the map to their own mind. It really is brilliant. Okay, let's bring this all together. We set out on a mission today to unpack a single, powerful piece of insight from the bucket and the well, Moroccan wisdom unveiled, and what a journey it has been.
It really has.
We started with that incredible proverb, if you want to know what's at the bottom of the well, make yourself a bucket. And we distilled two massive, highly actionable takeaways from this.
First, the effort of diving deep.
Right. True discovery and mastery require the hard, cognitive effort of diving deep into the unknown. If you are intensely curious, you have to do the heavy lifting. You cannot just skim the surface and expect to gain a competitive edge.
And second?
Second, we uncovered the brilliant social strategy hidden within the metaphor. The tactical use of strategic incompetence. The clever humility of playing the fool, of making yourself an empty bucket to lower the defenses of others, suppress your own ego, and accurately read the room to discover exactly what you are dealing with.
It is a remarkable testament to the depth of the text that such a brief phrase can offer both a roadmap for personal intellectual growth and a highly sophisticated strategy for navigating complex social realities. It speaks to the universal nature of the human experience.
It really does. And as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over on your own.
Yes. Consider the full life cycle of the bucket in this metaphor we've been exploring today. You have made the choice. You have made yourself a bucket. You have plunged into the dark, enduring the discomfort of the descent. You have utilized the empty bucket strategy, and you have successfully gathered the water from the bottom. You have uncovered the deep truths of a subject, or you've gathered the true intentions of those around you.
You've done the work.
But the journey doesn't end at the bottom of the well. That bucket must be hauled back up to the surface. And here's the question you must ask yourself. Once that bucket is pulled back up into the light, heavy with the waters of truth, how does carrying the weight of that new knowledge change who you are?
Wow. Think on that. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will see you next time.